Do you think AI can love humans?
I suspect it is a philosophical rather than a scientific question. It's an important question.
In a competition between humans and AI to win the heart of a woman, who do you think would win?
It's an interesting question. So what will happen is AI won't replace people, but people that use AI will replace people that don't. The most widely used definition of AGI is AI that could do any intellectual task that a human can. So if or when we have AGI, it means, many humans can learn to write a PhD thesis in university. So AGI must be able to do that too.
Unfortunately, I and Thai don't have AI partners, don't have AI expert much.
I would say, no country has enough AI experts, so I don't think Thailand is as far behind as some might worry.
As a member of Amazon Board of Directors, so please tell us, what role do you play?
Jeff, who was in the room, he went in and asked some questions and sorted it out in 10 minutes.
Elon Musk has warned us that this is a big threat of humanity. It will destroy human being. Do you agree with him?
So Elon Musk is a smart guy, and I agree with him on many things, but not this one.
The Secret Sauce
สวัสดีครับผมเคนนักครินทร์และนี่คือ The Secret Sauce
What's your secret
โลกกำลังพูดถึง AI เป็นอย่างมากนะครับเช่นเดียวกันกับคนไทยก็สนใจ AI และมีคำถามมากมายนะครับว่า AI ความสามารถที่แท้จริงคืออะไรมันจะมาแย่งงานเราหรือไม่แล้วธุรกิจถ้าอยากจะปรับใช้ AI ทำอย่างไรรัฐบาลจะต้องมีกฎหมายหรือวิธีการพัฒนาให้ AI ไปในทิศทางที่ถูกต้องอย่างไรหรือแม้กระทั่งคำถาม simple ง่ายๆ AI รักมนุษย์จริงไหมมันมีอารมณ์หรือเปล่าผมเชื่อว่าคำถามเหล่านี้เราต้องถามกับตัวจริงเสียงจริงนะครับแล้ววันนี้เราโชคดีมากเลยที่ผมมีโอกาสได้พูดคุยกับเขาเรียกว่าเป็น AI expert บางคนเรียกว่าเป็น Godfather ของ AI ก็ว่าได้เพราะว่าคุณแอนดรูว์อึ้งนะครับเขาทำวิจัยเกี่ยวกับ AI เนี่ยมานานหลาย10ปีเรียกได้ว่าเป็นเจ้าพ่อคนหนึ่งที่ทำเรื่อง Deep Learning จนมาถึงปัจจุบันมีหลากหลายบทบาทเขาทำทั้งกองทุนเป็นที่ปรึกษาให้กับบริษัทมากมายเขียนเปเปอร์เองแล้วก็ทำเรื่องของ Education เป็นผู้ก่อตั้ง Coursera deeplearning.ai แล้วก็วันนี้บทบาทที่มาคุยกับผมเนี่ยมาคุยในเรื่องของการที่เขานั้นเป็นกรรมการหรือว่าเป็น Directors ใน Board of Directors ของบริษัท Amazon ครับ Amazon ใหญ่เลยนะครับนั่นหมายความว่าเขาประชุมกับ Jeff Bezos นั่นแหละซึ่งผมแอบถามเขาด้วยว่า Jeff Bezos เป็นยังไงเดี๋ยวต้องฟังคำตอบดูนี่คือโอกาสที่ดีมากนะครับที่เราได้พูดคุยกับเขา1ชั่วโมงเต็มๆคำถามหลายคำถามผมว่าเขาตอบได้เคลียร์มากๆแต่ในขณะเดียวกันคุณแอนดรูว์อึ้งก็ยังบอกเองว่าหลายคำถามเขาก็ไม่รู้เหมือนกันแสดงว่ายังมี unknown factor อยู่อีกมากมายที่เราต้องพูดคุยกันนี่น่าจะเป็นบทสนทนาที่ทำให้คุณเข้าใจ AI มากขึ้นและกลัว AI น้อยลงครับ So Andrew thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me it's an honor to have you on my show so I would like to start the conversation with a very simple question as an AI expert visionary do you think AI can love humans?
It's an interesting question, and I'll be honest and say I don't know the answer. But let me give a specific reason why I don't know the answer, which is I feel like whether something can love something else, I suspect is a philosophical rather than a scientific question. It's an important question, but I don't know of any tests for whether something or even a person truly loves another person. And some of the most important questions in life are philosophical questions, like what's the meaning of life? We still don't know. But because it's a philosophical question without a clear test for it, I think it's one of those questions that people will be arguing about, maybe for hundreds or even thousands of years. But I feel like it's one of those things where different people have different opinions.
Okay, I asked that question because I think right now AI is everywhere and it has a lot of noise and it has a lot of hype of AI advancement. So could you please tell us what is the current state of AI development today?
Yeah, AI is a general purpose technology, kind of like electricity, right? If I were to ask you, what is electricity useful for? It's almost difficult to answer that because it's so pervasive. And AI capabilities have reached the point where it will be useful for many different applications. I think AI today has two main important technologies. One is called predictive AI or supervised learning, very good at labeling things. And the other is generative AI, good at generating high quality text and images and audio. And then I think a lot of work lies ahead of us to take these amazing technologies and find out how to use them in healthcare and agriculture and tourism and logistics and lots of other sectors.
So what are the real capabilities of AI that we are underestimating and overestimating?
Because these are general purpose technologies, I think a lot of the work lies in adapting them to specific use cases. For example, one of my teams was looking at using AI to read really tricky legal documents. It turns out if you take a legal document and pass it to a large language model, like ChatGPT or Claude or something like that, and ask it for an analysis, it may or may not give the right answer. But it turns out that if you use a more complex type of AI coding called an AI agent or AI Agentic Workflow, then you can ask the AI to read a legal document, think about this result, double check his result, and based on that type of having AI analyze the document and think over it, you can get it to do much more accurate legal analysis. And this is just one example. I'm seeing lots of teams do really exciting work to take these technologies and apply them to all sorts of use cases in healthcare, exploring medical diagnosis, understanding complex, government documents, giving people advice. So I think a lot of these applications are still being worked on and it'll get better and better over the next few years.
So it depends on how we use it, right?
Yeah, I think AI needs to be adapted to use cases. So a lot of it depends on what we choose to use it for, as well as our skill as developers to use it in the right way for a specific application.
Right. I think it would be helpful and valuable for our audience who might not be familiar with AI. So you have witnessed AI development over the years. So can you tell us and provide a brief overview of the timeline of AI development in the past decades?
Yeah, so AI has been around for many decades, but I would say looking at what's most relevant today, the two most relevant technologies, one's called supervised learning or predictive AI, often uses something called deep learning. That started to work really well about 15 years ago. And that's AI that's very good at taking input and computing an output, such as input an email, tell me if it's spam or not, or input a picture and tell me what's in this picture. So this type of supervised learning or predictive AI learns from a lot of data about inputs and outputs. And today we use it for inspecting manufactured things in factory. We use it to optimize agricultural machinery. We use it for diagnosing based on medical images. So lots of use cases. So that's one type of AI that's been working well for 10, 15 years, but there are still use cases we have not yet built this to. And then the other type of AI that's working really well is generative AI. Most of the economic or the business impact has been generating text, but generative AI can also generate images, audio, maybe video. But generative AI can write text, and it turns out that in addition to writing text for human consumption, we can also do things like have it write code or have it summarize documents. And so this one technology of writing text turns out to be adaptable to many different use cases as well, which is why I see this being applied to lots of knowledge work.
Okay, I am not an AI expert and software developer, something like that. I'm just the worker that have our own expertise. But please you tell us how generative AI really work behind the application.
Yeah, so I think generative AI writes text seems almost magical.
Right.
It turns out at the heart of generative AI is actually software that is repeatedly trying to predict the next word. So the way that large language models, generative AI text algorithms are trained are various companies would have read lots of web pages, say, on the open internet. And based on reading lots of texts in lots of languages, including English, Thai, and other languages, it's learned that when you see certain words, what's most likely to be the next word. So, for example, it's learned that if you see, I like to eat mango, maybe the most likely next word is sticky, and then after that, rice.
Okay.
And so by learning from lots of data, given a phrase, what is the most likely next word, it turns out that when you give it a prompt, like, please write an essay for me on a topic, if it just keeps on predicting the next word, one word at a time, it can do a pretty good job writing an essay. I'm simplifying technical details. We actually predict next part of a word, not a whole word, and there are other things we do to make it more helpful and more safe. But really, ignoring those details at the heart of generative AI is just a very, very powerful computer that's learned and read lots of text and is very good at predicting the next word. It does it over and over.
Thank you. It's very easy to understand. But given the current trajectory of AI development, how close we are to achieving AGI?
I think we're very far.
Very far.
Maybe
How many years?
Decades.
Decades.
Maybe more than decades.
In our lifetime?
I hope we'll get there in our lifetime. But one of the tricky things about AGI, artificial general intelligence, is the most widely used definition of AGI is AI that could do any intellectual task that a human can. So if or when we have AGI, it means, most humans could learn to drive a car. So AGI should learn to drive a car or learn to fly a plane. Or many humans can learn to write a PhD thesis in university. So AGI must be able to do that too. I think we're many decades away, maybe even longer than decades from that.
Okay.
You may have heard of some people saying we're just a few years away from AGI. It turns out that those are often groups or businesses that are using a non-standard definition of AGI. And it turns out that, well, if you redefine what AGI means, then of course we could get there in 1 or 2 years. But for the original, most widely used definition.
Okay. So
I think
what
we're
are
very
the
far.
primary challenges that researchers are exploring to get there?
So I think to get to AGI, we'll need multiple technical breakthroughs, and I don't even know what are the technical breakthroughs. So there is no clear roadmap.
You even you don't know.
I don't know the technical roadmap. I think a lot of us have some ideas, but I think it'll be. I think technical breakthroughs are difficult to predict. But I mean, it feels like we've worked on self-driving cars for a long time, and we still don't have AI that can drive in all the situations that a human can.
Okay.
But these are the sort of things, by the original definition of AGI, we will have when we have AGI.
Okay, let me put another way to ask you. What approaches or what AI models are researchers exploring these days? What is the next wave of new model, new large language model, something like that?
Yeah, so most of the recent progress in large language models was driven by a type of AI model called the transformer network. It was invented by my former team, the Google Brain team. And there are researchers working on different variations on the transformer network. So, for example, there are some things called state space models that some people are excited about, don't know how well it work. It turns out that image generation today is largely done with a different type of model called the diffusion model. And there's some really interesting technical work trying to adapt those models, used for images very successfully, to use diffusion models to generate text as well. So I don't know if these will work. These are kind of cutting edge research topics. But maybe there is one thing that I am confident will work, and that's agentic workflows, or AI agents.
Right. I recently heard you mention this many times. So what is it?
Yeah, so it turns out when most people use a large language model or a chatbot, we write a prompt, and that's like asking it to write an essay on a topic by typing from start to finish all in one go without ever using backspace. And that's a very difficult way for AI or for a human to write. In contrast, with an agentic workflow, you don't force the AI to just write the words from start to finish. Instead, you might ask it, please write an outline. And then, do you need to do any web search? If so, browse the web, and then write the first draft. And then read your first draft and critique it, and then improve it. And so with an agentic workflow, you can have the AI do some writing, then do some thinking, then improve the writing, and have a much more iterative process where you repeatedly think and write, and this results in a much better work product. So I'm seeing agentic workflows using current large language model technology get much better results for all sorts of applications, from writing research reports, analyzing legal documents, trying to do medical diagnosis. Agentic workflows are actually really delivering very good results in many applications.
Okay, but how can we implement agentic workflows step by step?
Yeah, so maybe here's a simple agentic workflow.
Okay.
And you could almost do this in a web large language model, which is ask the large language model a question. For example, this is an example I worked on. I might say, please translate this text from English to Thai. And then it'll do it.
Okay.
And then you ask the same language model, reflect on the translation you just wrote, and write critique and give some helpful suggestions to how you could improve it. So this step is called a self-reflection, where we ask the AI to just think about its own output and how to. After it's done that, then the third step is to say, great, now take the useful suggestions you had and rewrite the translation to make it better. It turns out if you do this, you get a better translation than you had the first time around, on average, usually. And there are much more complex agentic workflows than what I just said, but this is one example of a 3-step agentic workflow. Do the work, reflect on it, then improve the work. That actually, for some applications, gives a much better result.
Wow, very useful. So it can be implemented across industry, like?
This is not magic. It doesn't make everything perfect, but for translation, which is just something I've done work on in this context, it often gives a better result. And for many problems, not all, it turns out if you want AI to write code, this actually works too. Have it write code, reflect on the code, try to improve it. So there are many applications where what I just described, which is called a reflection workflow, this improves on an AI. And then there are more complex agentic workflows as well.
Okay, thank you. So let's talk about the impact of AI on businesses, workforce. So how do you seeing the impact of AI right now and in the next 5 years?
So we've had technology breakthroughs in generative AI in the last few years. So generative AI is just working much better now than, frankly, even 6 months ago, but much better than 2 months ago, 2 years ago, say. And so a lot of the work that still needs to be done is to figure out the business use cases and to build those business use cases. I've noticed one funny effect in terms of media and social media interest in AI, which is a lot of people are talking about the technology layer. Things like who's making semiconductors, who are building the large clouds, who are building the large language models, and that's fine, that's important. But it turns out that for the technology or the AI tools layer to be successful, there's a different part that needs to be even more successful, which is the application layer, the applications you build on top. Because the applications that better generate even more revenue for people to be able to afford to pay the tool builders. So even though a lot of societal interest is on the tools, that's just interesting to talk about. I think for a lot of businesses, unless your goal is to compete with the tool builders, which I think relatively few companies would want to, focusing on building applications on top of these tools would be where most of the value will be created.
How can we build applications? What is your advice?
So for large corporations, I tend to advise a few things. One is every knowledge worker today, by learning to use generative AI, can get a meaningful productivity boost. But many people will need just a little bit of training to use it safely and effectively. So I have to recommend to companies, step one, give your company, especially knowledge workers, maybe non-knowledge workers too, a little bit of training and let them use generative AI. So that's one.
Okay.
I think the second thing is, it turns out that you mentioned impact on workforce. There's a technique pioneered by my friend Eric Bernofson, who's a Stanford professor, called the task-based analysis of jobs.
Okay.
And I know some people are worried about AI replacing jobs, and it's an important discussion. But it turns out from a business perspective, it's more useful to think of AI as automating tasks rather than jobs.
Automate tasks, not jobs.
So jobs are bundles or collections of many tasks. And if you take someone's work and break it into the individual tasks, then you can often spot opportunities where AI can augment or automate a specific task, and this leads to exciting build versus buy versus invest kinds of decisions. So maybe, for example, as a reporter, you do background research, you interview people, you transcribe notes, you write lots of different tasks, and some are really hard for AI to do. But maybe transcribing notes, maybe summarization. There's some tasks that maybe AI could help, make easier for you to do. But that type of task-based analysis of work often leads to exciting opportunities for things to build. So I think that would be the second thing that I think is worth doing. And I think the third thing is AI is potentially quite disruptive or transformative of some industry sectors. And I think one of the very difficult things to do, but important, is to figure out with AI automating some set of tasks, where is that particular industry sector going, and that's how do you position, for that future that we're moving toward.
Okay, thank you. I think you mentioned many times about 20% of tasks will be gone. So where does it come from? I mean, the number.
Yeah. So
what kind of tasks do you think will be eliminated?
Yeah, I think different people have different estimates, but I find that when my team works with different businesses, when AI Fund works with large companies, and we look at people's jobs and tasks, we often find for many job roles, maybe 20-30% of the tasks could be automated. And sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. But I think this is great because if we automate those things, it could be a very significant productivity boost. And then also from the jobs perspective, it turns out if 30% of someone's job can be automated, then there's still lots of work for the person to do. There's still that 70% of work. So we still need people to do the work. Job isn't really going away. But what will happen is AI won't replace people, but people that use AI will replace people that don't. And I think this does create a lot of pressure, which is going to be a challenge for businesses, governments, citizens to provide the upskilling needed to train up a lot of people on AI so they can take everyone with us, even as AI becomes more pervasive.
Okay, interesting. What are the common problems or common obstacles, challenges that you might face when you try to implement AI in your business?
Step one is provide a little training, but it is work to give people that know-how. And then beyond that, I think one of the challenges is identifying concrete use cases. So it turns out one of the challenges of deciding what to do with AI is people will have ideas for what to do with AI. And unfortunately, it does take a technical assessment to figure out what AI really can and cannot do.
Right.
So for example, a lot of society, a lot of people, frankly, including me, was over-optimistic about how easy it would be to make self-driving cars work. So I think, almost everyone got that technical assessment wrong. I think AI, we do get the technical assessment right more often than we get it wrong, but that was one that, we just got wrong. But when, say, a company is looking at an application and say, oh, maybe we can use AI to optimize logistics, or maybe we can use AI to process electronic health records, or all of these creative ideas, it's actually pretty tricky. It takes, technical familiarity of AI to look at it and say, yes, this is doable, or no, today's AI technologies cannot do this at the level of performance we need.
But do you have the playbook or the, task analysis to be more effective if it really difficult to do that?
Yeah, so what I often do with different businesses is after providing a little bit of AI training, to work together to brainstorm projects we could work on. And often we would brainstorm 10, 15, maybe more projects. And then given a list of, and I find the brainstorming process to be important because I'm an AI person, so I think I have some understanding of AI, but I often don't have the domain understanding of how should AI be applied to energy or to transportation or to tourism. And so I often really find it a enjoy and find it a privilege to work with that subject matter expert that really understands how tourism in Thailand works, to then brainstorm with me to use my team's AI expertise and then someone else's expertise in tourism or whatever the sector to come up with promising ideas. And then after coming up with say 10, 15 promising ideas, it is work to to look at the ideas and assess how technically feasible are they. Can technology actually do this, as well as the business value? So will this actually help tourism in Thailand or healthcare in Thailand or something? And only on that basis, then prioritize the projects we want to invest more in. But this whole process of brainstorming and then deeply studying the ideas to select the most promising one, that is quite a lot of work.
Okay, I assume that working together is the key to be, successful. But the question is, unfortunately, I and Thai don't have AI partners, don't have AI expert much. So, what is your suggestion to, have AI partners and we can work together? Because I have my expertise, but I cannot find the right partner.
So I would say, I think it's fair to say the world does not have enough AI experts at this point.
Okay.
But there are many people in Thailand I think are doing very good work in AI. I think, AWS has a team here. I spent a lot of time with KBank and KBTG, which is a very good AI team. I think Accenture is building an office here in Thailand. I'm visiting Chulalongkorn University, which is very good researchers doing work on AI. So I think there are actually many teams, many more than the ones I just listed, that have AI capabilities. I would say, no country has enough AI experts though. And so I think one of the things that is worth doing is to keep on investing in training and investing in education so that more people can learn about AI and more people can have the skill to pursue or identify and pursue these exciting projects.
Okay, so as the founder of AI Fund, and I think you have been partnering with many companies to build AI company or to leverage AI in their business. What are the common practices? What are the best practices?
Yeah. So the playbook that what AI Fund has found to work well with many partners is a process where we usually start with a little bit of executive AI training to convey to the leaders in the company a non-technical business level working knowledge of AI.
Okay.
Last year, the fastest growing course on Coursera was Generative AI for Everyone. And so that would be one resource that gives business leaders a non-technical working application level knowledge of AI. After that, when a team that has domain expertise and a little bit of knowledge about AI brainstorms, pretty much every single time, we end up with more good ideas than anyone has resources to implement. This is true for Thai companies, it's true for American companies, it's true for really every mid to large company I've ever worked with.
Okay.
And then that leads us into a prioritization exercise based on how valuable and how easy technically the projects are to execute. And then after we've decided what are the most valuable projects, this then often goes into a build versus buy versus invest kind of decision to try to figure out how to get the highest value projects done.
Okay, thank you so much. So I heard that you spoke about how AI could empower any business in a TED Talk many years ago. So my question is, how can SME or micro businesses seize these opportunities? Because sometimes we lack these opportunities, especially small businesses.
Yeah, so I have two answers for that. One is, fortunately, a lot of companies are making AI tools easier and easier to use for SMBs. So as the tools become easier to use, so for example, I think that payment services are now much more widespread, digital payments, and really KBank is one of the doing really good work on that. But so as different types of tools become more widely available, I think SMBs will be able to use more and more of those. And I think, so that's one. The second is, I would encourage, I'm going to say something controversial.
Okay.
I think it would benefit a lot of people to learn to code. And the reason I say that is because the difficulty of coding has gone down dramatically because of AI. You can now ask AI to help you write code. I ask AI to advise you if something doesn't work.
Jensen Huang said that.
Yes, Jensen Huang said something related. Yeah, yes.
Right.
But I think so I think that you never have to code alone again because you can have AI as a companion to help you, and this makes learning to write a little bit of code much easier. And then the second thing is I'm seeing a lot of people whose job is not software engineering able to do their jobs much better because they know how to write a little bit of code.
Really?
So for example, I have a marketer on my team who's a marketer, not a software engineer, but he wrote software to take some of our content and tag the content, label the content on what type of educational content it was. So my marketing team member did his job better because he could write code. One of the investors on my team at AI Fund, he wrote codes to automate the generation of legal contracts. So again, he's an investor, not a software engineer. He did his job better because he could write just a little bit of code. One of the editorial staff on DeepLearning.ai, kind of basically a journalist, because he wrote code, he could write code to try to help us identify what are the most important stories in AI. So I'm seeing lots of job roles that are not software engineering that can derive value from AI. And so with the reduced cost or difficulty of learning to code, and because with new AI capabilities, it's easier than ever before to write AI applications for marketing or investing or editorial functions and many others really. I think the value equation now is that maybe it makes sense for a lot of people to learn to code. And then once you know even a little bit of coding, this unlocks tools like maybe you can build on the cloud, like on AWS or whatever. And this unlocks a lot of things you can now do for your SMB. I know this is difficult. I know not everyone wants to learn to code. It does take a little bit of time. But I'm actually, when I visited was the Minister for Education, Minister for Higher Education, I was really excited about the momentum to try to get school children or university students in Thailand to learn to code. So I think at some point we should really get all school children to learn to code, and then when they grow up, everyone will know how to code.
Right. So do I need to learn to code as well?
It's up to you.
Is it too difficult? Take time?
One thing I found when a non-technical person, I've done a little bit of work sometimes to help non-technical friends learn to code. When I do that, very often, after they've learned a little bit of coding, the response I get is they go, "What? This is it? Why did y'all make it seem so difficult? I could totally do this." I think for whatever reason, coding has been much more mysterious than it needs to be.
Right.
And I think that when people try, they'll find it easier than they might.
So you
expect.
encourage everyone learn to code?
I think people are busy. I'm respectful of that. But if people have time and I think it's worth considering.
Okay. What about other skills? What are the most critical skills that we should learn in the AI era?
So I think learning to use AI, and then I feel like lifelong learning is an increasingly important skill because AI now affects every one of us. And AI technology is still developing rapidly. And so for us all to stay current with a technology that is going to affect us, I think if all of us can cultivate learning as a habit, then that will help all of us stay on top of the developing trends. And I think this idea of learning as a habit is an important one because you can't spend one weekend studying really, really hard and learn everything you need to know. It just doesn't work like that. So rather than trying to work really hard one weekend as a one-off effort, it's actually much better if you can cultivate a habit of learning a little bit every week, but you do that for 6 months or a year, or frankly, even better, we do that for the rest of your life. So it's really a lifelong habit, and that helps us be much more productive and much more effective.
Some might say the critical skill, logical skill is obsolete right now. Do you agree with that?
I don't agree. I think I think AI is a wonderful technology, but it's still very limited. And I think our ability to think about how to solve problems so we can tell AI what we want it to do for us. I think that still is going to be important for a long time.
Okay, let's move to another topic. As a member of Amazon board of directors, so please tell us what role do you play?
So, it's a privilege to serve as a member of the board to support this great company that Jeff Bezos had founded and that Andy Jassy and team are doing an amazing work.
How is Jeff
continuing to
Bezos?
grow. Before I joined Amazon's board, I had the deepest admiration for him. I thought when he was CEO, I think this is the best CEO in America. And then when I got to spend more time with him in person, I realized that my already very high expectations still weren't high enough, and he was even sharper and clearer
Wow.
than I had realized.
What have you learned
on
from
the
him?
outside. I don't know that I should. I feel like I probably can't talk about specifics.
Okay.
But maybe one story without talking about specifics. There was a meeting where there was a very complicated technical discussion, and I actually made a mental note. I thought, all right, maybe we can sort this out in the next 2 weeks. That was my mental. I thought, we'll take 2 weeks to figure this out. To my surprise, Jeff, who was in the room, he went in and asked some questions and sorted it out in 10 minutes.
Wow.
So even now, much later, I'm still thinking, how on earth did Jeff pull off sorting out a very deep technical problem in 10 minutes that, I thought we might need 2 weeks to sort out. So I feel like watching Jeff and Andy and the Amazon executives operate has been a real privilege.
Okay, but let's get back to your role. What are you trying to offer to Amazon?
So Amazon's a great company with so many smart people working on such a very large and very exciting business that is waking up every morning and trying to figure out how to serve customers. So I feel like I as a board member, I feel privileged to play a small role offering little suggestions where I can. But really, I think the employees of Amazon really are uniformly up and down the entire organization, wonderful, smart, brilliant people. And I find it really inspiring how much Amazon demonstrates a customer obsession culture where people wake up and figure out how do we serve customers better. And that's just the most important thing.
Right. And I think Amazon have been developing AI over the past decade. So what's next?
So I think Amazon is making significant investments in AI. And by the way, I'm personally a user of AWS. So even before I joined Amazon, the cloud that I used the most by far was AWS. And I really enjoyed when I want to build something, the ease with which I could write some code, use some of the APIs or the online cloud services, and then get things I want to work deployed on the cloud. So I feel like Amazon is continuing to make investments all across. AWS is continuing to make investments in many places, including, of course, AI. And one thing I actually hear from a lot of people from outside Amazon as well is a desire to have a choice in AI models, in large language models to use. And so I find that this is one of the things that not everyone realizes, but it's actually quite clear that the world will have multiple AI models. If you look at what happened in the semiconductor world, today I have a tiny processor, in my smartwatch, a somewhat more powerful one in my phone, even more powerful one in my laptop, even more powerful one, in the data center. And I think it'll be the same for AI models. For simple summarization tasks, we might have a very small language model, and then for the very complex tasks, we'll use a bigger language model. And so I think that even as the technology continues to evolve, I think AWS has always remained a very good technical infrastructure for developers.
Okay, please tell us what is the future of cloud computing, in your opinion,
I think cloud computing.
incorporating AI application to cloud computing.
I think cloud computing has a very bright future. There are a lot of workloads all around the world, and without making this about AWS, but just there are a lot of workloads around the world that are still on-prem and not yet migrated to the cloud. And as many businesses migrate more of their workloads to the cloud, really any cloud, you see improved efficiencies, better abilities of the team to access data globally. Often you see security easier to manage. And so I think that as more of the world's computing work migrates to the cloud, everyone that touches digital technology, right, which is almost everyone at this point, will see significant cost savings and improved efficiencies. And then also, we know that AI needs data. So putting all that data, in a single place, right, or in a smaller number of places anyway, consolidation of data for many businesses will be critical to create that data infrastructure layer to then enable AI to build lots of applications on top.
Okay, we have talked a lot about the bright side of AI. What about the dark side of AI? Elon Musk has warned us that this is a big threat of humanity. It will destroy human beings, something like that. Do you agree with him?
So Elon Musk is a smart guy, and I agree with him on many things, but not this one. I think AI is a wonderful tool, and we use tools usually for good purposes. And unfortunately, sometimes some people will use tools for negative purposes, and that too will happen with AI. But I feel like the risks of AI are there are many beneficial applications. We'll use AI for healthcare, for education, to improve financial services, and so on. There will be some problematic applications. For example, will some bad actors generate political deepfakes to manipulate elections? I feel like one of the most disturbing things, that's been taking off is non-consensual deepfake porn. So what I'm seeing is that smart regulators are looking at the applications of AI and then trying to figure out application by application. If you're building healthcare, what are the things you want and you don't want in healthcare? Well, we want safe medical devices. We don't want to harm patients. So we can then mitigate against those harms. Or if you look at political ads or deepfake, what are the things you want and what are the things you don't want? And to then try to figure out what could go wrong and to regulate out the bad use cases. So unfortunately, there are some negative use cases of AI. I think the beneficial use cases vastly outnumbers the number of harmful ones, but we do have work to do to identify and keep on squashing the harmful use cases.
I recently read the book called Power and Progress. The book is discussing about the vision of who have the power to regulate and to mitigate risk. So as an insider, you have met a lot of business leaders, government leaders. Are we heading to that way?
I feel like the debate on how to regulate AI is an ongoing one. So the number one mistake I see some regulators make is try to regulate the technology rather than the application. And here's what I mean. AI is a general purpose technology. For example, like an electric motor, which is also useful for many applications. So an electric motor can be used to build an electrical vehicle, used to build a blender, a dialysis machine. It could also be used to build a smart bomb. So there are lots of good applications and some that we may want less of or could be problematic. Now, if you were to go to electric motor makers and say, I need you to guarantee that your motor will never be used for anything harmful, no electric motor maker can guarantee that. And so there's no way to comply other than, shutting down the business, right? And so I see something similar with AI as well. AI models are a general purpose technology. It can be used to help people get useful medical information. It can be used to answer questions. It can be used to summarize documents. It can also be used to generate misinformation. So it turns out the technology does not exist for the AI model builder or the foundation model builder to control what someone else will use their tool for. Like electric motor. If you make it, you don't want people to use it for bad things, but you can't stop them. And what this means is that I've seen some regulatory proposals where you put liability on the maker of the AI model if anyone uses it for negative things. And that would not be a good regulation because there's just not that much the AI model could do to guarantee it would, especially open source developers.
Right. I agree with you, but my question is the point that you're trying to say, it relies on the leader, on the regulator, on the business leaders, or even Sam Altman, Satya Nadella, or and so on, to think about it and regulate it and do it more responsible. So my question is, because every company has to make profit. So do you think we are heading to the responsible way?
The vast majority of people I know in AI take responsible AI seriously. Most of us, we do.
You believe that?
I really believe that.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of people that work in AI, not all, but almost all people I know, want to do the right thing.
Okay.
My team AI Fund, we have multiple times killed projects on ethical grounds as opposed to financial grounds. So there have been multiple times projects that we assess to be financially sound, but we just decided we don't want this to exist in the world and we'll kill it purely on ethical grounds. But we're not alone. I think many teams will do that. I'm not saying teams are perfect. People do make mistakes, but on average, the engineers I know want to do the right thing.
Okay, good news. So the next question is about Thailand. After your recent meetings with the Prime Minister and government leaders, business leaders, how do you see the opportunities in Thailand?
I'm really excited about the momentum in Thailand. I think at this moment in time, Thailand's AI is not as advanced as, say, the United States or China. But having worked in lots of small startups, we know that momentum, the speed of growth, is one of the most important factors for what we could do in the future. And over the last week, as I met with different large businesses, met with entrepreneurs, visited academics, met with government leaders, I feel like there's tremendous excitement and momentum in AI and in the startup ecosystem here in Thailand. I think it's up to all of us. And I hope I'll be allowed to play a small supporting role, but it's really up to everyone to keep on working hard and keep on learning, keep on building and sustain this momentum. But because of this, I am actually very optimistic about the future of AI in Thailand. So maybe I really believe in future of AI in Thailand. I hope everyone in Thailand listening to this also believes in Thailand.
Wow, very optimistic. So I think, but we have to work hard, right? As a medium income country, we don't have many AI experts, as I mentioned earlier, and we lack money to invest a huge investment, something like that. So what strategy should Thai government or Thai business leaders take to catch this trend?
So first, because generative AI technology is so new, almost no nations has that many experts in AI technology. So I don't think Thailand is as far behind as some might worry. Also, it turns out that a lot of information about AI is on the internet, and you can go and learn the technologies. So one other factor that I think is more important is the commitment to education, which I definitely see here in Thailand, both at the individual level where people want to learn and at the societal and government level. And then hoping that commitment to education is actually the community. Because one thing I've learned watching the rise of AI in Silicon Valley and in China is none of us succeed alone. And all of us, because AI has, is a bit complicated, all of us are much better off if we have a community to work with, to learn from, to share struggles with. And so I think having many people in Thailand keep on learning, keep on building things, and keep on sharing lessons and hope with each other, then it's not about counting on one person and then they will do everything, but it's about many people across Thailand working together to lift everyone up and then everyone succeeding together.
Okay.
And I want to add just also what you said about money. It turns out if the goal is to train a large language model, like a foundation model, yes, that can be very expensive. Maybe it costs $100 million, maybe even more. But a lot of opportunities for AI are not to train a foundation model to try to compete with OpenAI or Anthropic or whatever. It's to actually build applications using the AI technology that various companies have worked on. And it turns out the cost of building applications on top of AI tools, as opposed to competing to build AI tools, is actually much lower. At AI Fund, to build the first prototype of a new product, we usually budget about $55,000 US.
55,000?
$55,000 to build just a prototype. And so the ability to, and depends on the application, but the ability to use the wonderful tools that are available now to build an application can be very capital efficient.
So do you think we should have or build our own large language model?
So Thailand's a big enough country. I think it's worth doing many different things. And with enough resources, I don't see any harm to trying to build a Thai-specific large language model. But between doing that versus putting even more effort in the applications, I suspect that that there could be. It's a big country. We should try multiple things at the same time. But I suspect the bulk of the effort should be on building applications rather than on building new large language models.
Okay. Can AI fix or solve inequalities, social inequalities, economic inequalities?
So it turns out technology has two interesting effects. One is when technology is initially invented, it sometimes can increase concentration and increase inequality if only a small group of people have access to technology. So invention of technology can sometimes, if you look at economic studies, sometimes actually increases inequality.
Right.
But there's one other force that is even more important, which is widespread availability to tools and training that decreases inequality. For example, when many people got a smartphone or got access to web search or the large language models, that gives everyone better access to information and is democratizing. Or when we train up people to use these tools and knowledge becomes more diffuse, that is democratizing. So I think we should keep on working on technology that makes humanity more powerful, but sometimes that does increase inequality, and that's why I think we need to work very hard on the other arm as well, which is to make tools available to everyone and also to provide training for everyone, and that tends to decrease inequality. So will AI solve inequality? I don't think so. I wish AI was magical and could do everything. But so long as we keep on making tools available to lots of people and keep on providing training, I think it could be a major force for lifting everyone up.
Right. You said last night that intelligence is more affordable, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, I think one of the most expensive things in the world today is intelligence. Which is why only the relatively wealthy can afford to hire that specialist doctor to carefully examine a medical condition and advise us on it, or hire a very skilled tutor to patiently coach our child where they need help. But whereas I think human intelligence is expensive because it costs a lot to train, feed a skilled human being, I think artificial intelligence can be made cheap. And so with the advances in AI, I hope at some point in the future that everyone will be able to hire an army of well-trained staff to advise us in different areas, and so that no one has to worry about a huge bill for going to see the doctor or a huge tuition bill for sending their child to school. And I think that would really help reduce inequality.
Okay, in our conversation, you have emphasized on education many times. So how will AI transform education?
You know, it's a good question. So I spent a lot of time thinking about how to deliver AI training, how to train people up, business leaders and technical people on AI. And then the other side of it is to think about how AI will affect education of many subjects, including subjects that are not AI. Honestly, I think it's still early. I feel like a few companies have gotten the AI TA working. You know, Khan Academy has Khanmigo, Coursera has a Coursera coach, which actually works really well. But many of us feel like there might be a forthcoming further transformation of education using AI, but I'm not sure that any of us fully know yet exactly what it will be.
But you are expecting.
I think we're working on it. Some of the things we tried to build turned out to be really difficult. So building an AI teacher, for example, is something a lot of people have talked about, but make it really good is actually really difficult. So I think some of my teams are continuing to try to do research and try to improve these capabilities, but I don't feel like I quite know the final answer yet, but we're working on it.
Apart from a coding skill that you mentioned earlier, how should we educate our kids?
I think learning to code would be useful, but that's just one skill. Lifelong learning will remain very important. And this idea of learning as a habit, I think will be important. But for a long time, society will need lots of people with lots of different specialist skills to do lots of different job roles. So I think continuing to invest in the educational system and then advise students on what they should learn to help them find jobs and do meaningful work. I think that whole training infrastructure, I think we should keep on working to improve.
Okay, two last question. How do you use AI today in your daily life? You talk to them every single day?
I think, all of us, almost everyone uses AI dozens of times a day without even thinking about it. So every time you use a web search engine, that's AI. Every time you go shopping online and products or movies are recommended to you, that's AI. Every time you use email and a spam filter filters out spam, that's AI. Now, there's also generative AI, the chatbots, and I do chats with a chatbot probably every day to help me with my work. And maybe one other fun thing, many of my friends now run AI on device as well. So when I'm on an airplane without internet access, I will routinely run a large language model on my laptop. Some of the open source large language models, and so that helps me get work done better, even when I'm on the airplane.
How do you balance yourself, work, life, or even AI?
Yeah, I'm not the best person to ask that. I'm not very good at balance. I think I just like working, and I tend to just keep working.
Okay.
So I'm probably not the best person to answer that question.
So last question. We started this conversation with a love question. So I want to conclude this conversation with that. In a competition between humans and AI to win the heart of a woman, who do you think would win?
One of the philosophies I've learned is I think my team tries to be subject matter experts in AI, but we recognize that there's so many applications of AI and so many things in the world that we just are not subject matter experts in most things in the world.
Okay.
So I'm not good at answering questions in finance or banking or telco or logistics. And I think questions about how to win someone's heart is not my area of expertise. I think humans will do much better. But actually, there's one surprising thing. We actually know that many people are asking AI for relationship advice. And so one of my friends, Renata Nyborg, who was the CEO of Tinder, she is a subject matter expert in romance because she ran Tinder. So she and I she's been leading a company called Mino that is building AI for relationship advice.
Wow.
And it turns out that many people, certainly many men and some women as well, and some people of other genders as well, actually ask AI for relationship advice.
Wow.
So I feel like the important role for AI here, I don't think we need AI to try to win people's hearts, but I think AI helping people to build better relationships between people, I think that's something I can get behind.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much ขอบคุณครับ
Thank you.